Okay, here we are. Hi there, how you all doing? Hope this Friday. I'm completely losing track of days. I hope this Friday is going all right. Hope you went well through the week and ready for the weekend. Yeah, I'm really sorry for the delay. I just got really derailed for today. I got into like some hyperfixation modes for things that were not planned for me to do today, or are in any degree something that I should be dealing with or should be working in at any point in time, which is ttrpg shenanigans, and I just could not escape. I was not able to escape it today. It was just, I was held in its grasp and just had to basically just gush it all out. And to be fair, I'm not done. I'm too focused on, or like too hyperfixated on it right now to kind of like think on anything else. I don't know, just had a few combos with some other people here and there, and it just triggered things. So yeah, I'm a bit all over, but it's fine. I was able at the very least to do the minimum I was planning to do today, so I'll take that as a win more than anything else. Technically I still have to do a few things, but I can quickly do them after stream, so it's fine. But yeah, basically just jumped at all that and had to deal with it, and you know, almost done, because I'm catching up with the clips. I'm almost caught up with I'm at a point where I'm, you know, starting to clip today's this week's series of streams, I think. So I'm already at kind of at that point, but I've also started to make a few more other clips, because I decided because I don't know, I maybe just hate myself or just want to like spend needlessly extra time on it, because why not? Yesterday I was working on the Final Fantasy clip compilation thing, specifically the entire, you know, clip compilation highlight of A Realm Reborn, which I'm planning to do. And now the thing is, for context, most of the effort and process in me doing this kind of constant clip making, clip creating has started a bit more recent than the Final Fantasy streams. I think I've started doing clips somewhere, I think mid to late spring, if not early summer. Yeah, I think I think mid to late spring. I had a period of a short period, I think like maybe like a month or two, where I haven't done it again. I have not kept up with it. I've just been in a really bad state, and I've just been all over, and I just couldn't work on it. And then got back into doing it in September, and kept up at it. And from what I know, since September, I haven't really clipped much, because I think I've started Final Fantasy sometime in that weird nebulous area where I've not managed to make clips or something of that sort. Yeah, Final Fantasy, technically it's A Realm Reborn, I think somewhere within the following weeks. It might be just I might just have a year since I've started playing. Actually, I can check. Let me see. Let me see. Got the YouTube things. I have my VOD list. Because the Final Fantasy, it's also one of the first games that I've started from the very beginning with multi-streaming. So I have the archives on the same date as I usually stream. So they're gonna be a accurate representation of when was the first stream of it. Wait, I already got to WoW, so that's. Oh no, 4th of June. I've actually started. Oh no, actually, you know, I'm kind of halfway. It's only been like 6 months. I don't know why it felt like a year. Holy shit. Not in a bad way, I'll be honest. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying it kind of. I could have swore I've started earlier, because I thought I ended WoW somewhere mid to. Oh no. June makes sense now that I remember some of the details. Oh, June makes sense. I think that was the point. Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, then I started Final Fantasy 14. It was literally during the kind of nebulous area where I've not clipped anything since, and then when I come back to clipping, I started I think literally close towards the end of the leveling experience, actually, because if I remember correctly, I think I started clipping when I did the Garuda trials during the quest, during like the leveling quest line, not even like the hard mode of the trial. So I was at the cusp of ending the main story, like the leveling story of Ram Reborn. But yeah, I still have a few streams that I've not yet. I have quite a few. To be fair, not many, like 12-ish. 12 streams worth of clips. And my plan is not necessarily to at least do the same way, but that I've done like in the past. At the very least to grab a clip per stream. And if I find something else, I'll also clip that moment as well. But usually just at the very least find a moment if or you know, make the effort of having something from it. So I decided to kind of like as a special thing for the highlight to also add clips from those streams as well. But these are gonna be special only for the highlight. I'm not gonna make cut versions of it, mostly because all of the clips have a lot of background music that TikTok does not like for some reason, which is, you know, one of the kind of reasons why most of my clips are made through the Twitch VODs, where the background music that you're hearing right now is removed. Because for YouTube, I cannot do that because YouTube does not have the multi-audio track kind of, I don't know, back-end editing things compared to Twitch. Or maybe they do, but maybe it requires some sort of plugin. I do not know. I know just by default, I've not seen it, and up until now, I've kind of kept up with most of my streams, so I was able to like just get them from the Twitch VODs before they expire, make clips from that, and just put it up. Because for any clip that is longer than a minute, and these days I'm usually having clips longer than a minute, the current background music that I'm using apparently for TikTok, it's already part of their music library, and TikTok only allows a minute of that music library. And if you have it as part of the video and not part of their library, they don't like it because they still auto detect it, and they basically flag and mute your video, and I don't like it. I've had one of those happen like that, and I just didn't like it. Yeah, and I don't want to like just put things on YouTube. So these are gonna be exclusive for the highlight moment. So it's gonna be like 12 streams. I don't know. I'm suspecting that should be like half an hour of extra content. Which, to be fair, because I've already pre-rendered the compilation of the existing clips, because initially because this idea came to me after I've done that pre-render, which took me a fucking while. Because also another thing why I don't do it for YouTube, which is something I've learned when I started to catch up to my VODs, which a few of them were lost from Twitch, were deleted from Twitch, so I had to do it for YouTube. One of the things that I found out, and I don't know why, I'm not sure if it's a Mayan thing or a YouTube thing. Every clip that I get from YouTube, it has some part of the video render that has a slight error, like in the margins of like milliseconds, like a few milliseconds in one frame of a video. It just is corrupted, and it always messes up the render, and I have to redo the render again because I have to cut that section and re-render it, because and to be fair, because it's like milliseconds of lost frames. Literally, you're not losing anything. Like on the viewers end, it's almost you probably don't really notice it. So it's completely fine on the quality wise, but it's something I did, and with the compilation, because it's on a different formatting than in my usual clip formatting. I had to use the raw videos again, and I had to re-render because I completely forgot which ones were broken, which ones were not. I probably should have flagged them, knowing in advance that I would have done this video. And that was on my end, my fault. But yeah, I had to redo that quite a few times. And already with what we have, which is the rest of the streams, because as I said, only 12 streams have not been archived or not necessarily archived, but I have not had clips of it. The rest do, which is 18. And it's already an hour and a half. And to take into account, I've also added my review portion of a Ram Reborn that I've kind of ad-libbed during the final stream of that expansion. So it's already pretty lengthy. So I'm suspecting with the added clips, it's gonna be somewhere within 2 hours. Probably my longest long format video that is not a VOD. So for the channel so far. And yeah, I decided just kind of as a special thing because it's one of the few that I still technically have on archive, and now with YouTube I am able to make clips from it, so at the very least I'm not losing any sort of so I can easily just grab something from there and put them back to back. It's gonna be easier. I just have to basically slowly and meticulously comb through those VODs every day while I'm working on the other ones, but it should be fine. I did my math. I should have them ready by when I'm planning to upload it, which is gonna be 2 weeks from now on Friday. And that's the goal and that's the plan. And afterwards, I am also... but before that, for next week, I am planning to release a best of this, 2026 winter. And today, actually, a few minutes already, it's already been... should already been released. I've already done the best of 2025 clips. Of the clips that I have so far. That's, which is not necessarily many, but at the base of the clip collection I've had, that video should already be uploaded and available for you to view. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, today. It's already should be up there. But yeah, I just saw an issue, something that I was working on YouTube. Oh well, I'll figure it out later. But yeah, I'm slowly catching up with those. So yeah, because I decided to take this not necessarily surmountable task, but it's an extra task nonetheless. That means it's gonna be a while, but hopefully with how I manage all of it, it should be done by next week. Hopefully, maybe not next week, by 2 weeks from now. Hopefully, maybe we'll see. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm catching up with. Not necessarily catching up, but working on. It's that clip. Next week I'm probably gonna work for the highlights of winter. The Void Train compilation. It's also gonna be another one that we're gonna do, and then we'll see from there what exactly else is be done. I'm trying to think is because game wise, I don't think we've done or we completed anything else in recent times. I'm pretty sure. Because I don't do compilations of the ttrpg ones. For anything that is like live servicey-ish, not really. I don't do that. And most of the other stuff has been one-offs or really short to not really justify compilations. For example, things like Soma, that's just been 2 streams. I don't see the point of it. Yeah, some live service stuff like a few gachas here and there, but again, don't see the point. Yeah, currently nothing. I am planning probably once we get actually no, yeah, I forgot. I remember because I did say it at a point. I should probably make notes of these. About also clipping by arc Warframe, that having Warframe highlights by arcs, by story arcs, and we've already been done with the first story arc a while back, so we have like what, 2 maybe 3 streams of it already. I forgot exactly how many, but could have. Although I'm not sure if it's gonna be worth it to have them as arc. We'll see. I'll look into it. So yeah, that's technically another one that we can do. So we have a few things already done, planned. Yeah, and one other thing, which is something that unfortunately I wasn't, because I got derailed today, I wasn't able to do it. So I'll probably have to rush it tomorrow. Somehow is to look for Steam Next Fest to at the very least grab a few demos to have as backup for tomorrow's game demo coverage, because there's a possibility that demo is going to be short or like an hour long or something like that. So at the very least to cover it with some other things and take advantage of the Steam Next Fest, I might just jump to a few of those, or have a few of those as backup. I'll look into it. That's probably like one of the other things I need to check. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think I need to do anything else. I think I right now of the small things that I have planned. There are some other like bigger things that I should probably start looking or thinking about soonish. But I'm hoping once I have everything caught up, I can just jump and do that. But yeah, outside of that, yeah, not much else to mention. Yeah, as I said, I'm just currently in my I've been ttrpg brain today for like game obsession stuff, and you know, we'll see how that's gonna run or how that's gonna go. I have several ideas. To be fair, as a player, not necessarily as a game master. Those are also gonna be something for the near future, hopefully. We'll have to see. Somewhere with some technically some of the discussion has been happening, has mentioned the possibility of something maybe being done in the summer. We'll have to see when. Nothing is clear, nothing is 100%. It's just been very high level discussed, but there are some ideas and some concepts in why my brain has been a bit hyperfixed today that I really like, I want to explore, and I have some reimaginings and re-envisionings of some things that I've already had made to kind of fit this, and yeah, I already like it. I'm already kind of on board. So yeah, that's gonna be a few of the things, but for today, because I don't see the point to kind of keep at it for anything else, because we were on the subject of tabletop RPGs. We have discussions, we have things to cover, we have things to look forward to. I'm suspecting it's gonna be within a similar time length as last week when it comes to content and coverage. Let me just surface look right now by page number more than anything, because that's mostly how I've looked at them before. 50. Two, and I'm even suspecting probably less than 20. Okay, yeah, fair enough. So, and I'm pretty sure like the pilot one was even lengthier. 28. Yeah, it was actually a bit lengthier. So yeah, it's not gonna probably we're gonna be able to like go through it faster. That's fine. That's good. But before we do all of that, to kind of offer a quick rundown, as I mentioned, yes, this is a tabletop RPG stream. This is the main topic. These are the main discussions in general speaking. Of course, all of these discussions are welcome at any point in any stream I'm doing, but this stream, this day specifically on the calendar, on every Friday, usually, and most of the times every Friday, if it's not some other game release that's happening around that time, or some other sort of like release or big thing that is happening around the time. Usually it's Fridays. This is a dedicated slot for people to kind of be around here, talk about TTRPGs, their love for it, their excitement, gush about it, be excited, and do all those sorts of fun stuff. And I just want to say that this is a place where all of that can be done without any sort of restraint, in the sense that what I am covering on stream is mostly as a topic for us to have covered, or something for me to discuss. So I'm not just out here in the void, waiting for something to happen. Because at the same time, I also want to be lurker friendly. If there are people out here who just want to vibe, listen about it, tabletop RPGs, hear me talk or read text for some reason. I don't know if people enjoy that. I'm guessing they do. I've been told a few times that some people like my voice, so I'm hoping that's a part of it, of the experience. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm guessing. So yeah, that's also well and welcome. So at the very least, but don't feel discouraged just because I'm talking about a topic that it's not something that you want to discuss of. You shouldn't. I am completely open. So if you want to gush about something, share things that you're working on, maybe you want to ask for some advice or help or any other sort of guidance. Either maybe someone in the chat can help you, or I myself included. I've been playing tabletop RPGs at this point, or at least I'm within the hobby space for at least almost not 6 years. I'm 6 years, no 6. I'm more than 6. I'm almost 8. Oh yeah, almost 8 years within this. Damn. Yeah, almost 8 years within this kind of hobbyist space. Like most people, started with D&D 5th edition, the OG one, because I started in 2018. If you do math, and game mastered and player in equalish amounts in the classical action economy combat style sort of fantasy game that D&D is. But in recent years, I've actually explored and played and tried out different systems. Specifically, the one that I've played, I think, the most in recent times has been Vampire the Masquerade, or things within the World of Darkness series. Vampire the Masquerade 20th anniversary and Hunter the Reckoning, the 1st edition. So anything within the old World of Darkness system, which I've had a lot of love for it. Gestalt RPG is another one that I've tried, which is a in-betweener, let's call it, of D&D and Pathfinder when it comes to like complexities, how complex it is, how much customization you have, and how more simplified it is in comparison. Because being in the middle, it's not as complex as Pathfinder, but it's more complex than D&D in customization and options and all. And also encourages and has some mechanical roleplay elements as well, which is fun. And also like a bit of Pathfinder as well. Yeah, that's also been a thing. But I think mostly what heaviest I think has been what things generally that has been the space of it all. And who knows, maybe more of that is gonna happen in the future, maybe or maybe not. That's the obsession that I'm currently hyperfixating on today. We'll see. Oh boy, I'm not escaping being vampire pilled, both in and out of stream. I guess I play to my to my tropes, into my cliche, into my I guess into my persona, well, even outside of stream. But yeah, that's gonna be for other times, for other things to discuss. I'll see about it. I will do it. Oh boy. But anyways, so yeah, those have been the things. And also through these streams, I've covered other stuff. I've looked at Lancer, talking about mechas and things that are going to be covered today. I've looked at Call of Cthulhu, Mothership RPG, Cult Divinity Lost, GURPS, and I think I'm missing one. Candle Obscura, but these I've just looked at the starter guides, but quick rundown of them as well. Then also Bunkers and Badasses, we looked fully through it, the D&D fantasy in-universe system that is from within the Borderlands franchise. And Tactic Quest pretty recently, that has been a recommendation for me to check out, which has been a lot of fun. I did enjoy it, and who knows, maybe something for us to check in the future. And of course, the one that started all of these types of streams, the Daggerheart system, specifically the playtest. I've checked it out when it was still in like open playtest version, more than 2 years ago at this point. I think somewhere around like almost 2 years ago, because I think I started doing those streams in March, somewhere like that. So yeah, I think almost close to like 2 years. Oh boy. But yeah, just the playtest version. I want to check out the official like full release of it at some point if I get the means and to do it, because I would like to own it physically. To be fair, I would like to own a lot of the new things in equal amounts, physically and digitally. Especially once I've started doing all of this, and also got into some other different actual plays and other game systems. I've acquired a decent collection of other books. I have a plethora of things, World of Darkness, from all the shenanigans we've done, from things that we've covered, or not covered, but I've played or interacted with, Hunter the Reckoning and Vampire, and things out of it, like Werewolf the Apocalypse. Not sure if I have Mage things. I think I have Hunter Hunted, I think, if I remember correctly. Oh no, I actually have it now, yeah. Somebody has helped me out with a few PDFs today, actually, and I've actually collected a lot of supplements for Vampire the Masquerade 20th anniversary, to be specific. So yeah, I also have a lot of that as well. Oh boy, I'm not escaping this. And a few more other things. But yeah, So yeah, I have quite a selection of those, and plus some other things like Gestalt. I have, you know, beamsaber stuff, which we're covering today. Actually, no, Pathfinder stuff is all within the official wiki because it's purely all that it's mechanical is freely available as per their gaming license, so that you don't really have to struggle to find it, and some other smatterings of other things out there. And I'm gonna start now to kind of reminisce. Oh yeah, actually, I forgot Mithras. Mithras was like another system that we looked at, which was pretty fun as a more of a grounded sort of medieval fantasy kind of game, where the fantasy side is more just inspired on myth, folklore, and elements of theology within like history and culture, not necessarily within the medium of the fictional fantastic or fiction. Oh yeah, that's one that's also been fun to check. But yeah, again, finishing that whole standard. Yeah, I have some knowledge, some experience from some other game systems, and I would love to check a lot more in the future. So once again, if you don't feel discouraged, if you want to talk about something that is not pertaining to the topic I'm reading or talking about, feel free to gush. I'm gonna intervene, offer my advice if there is any advice to be given to the best of my ability, be it more specific or just generalized in case I'm not familiar with the system, so I don't necessarily know the inner workings of it all. Because, you know, I'm not gonna call myself some encyclopedia knowledge of across of all TTRPG things or like specific TTRPG systems or subjects. I obsess to certain corners of certain things here and there, and nothing more and nothing less. And I usually look into more into things the more I need to, which I think it's healthier than to have to look the wider expanse of certain systems. It's like, you know, give the biggest example, like WoD. WoD has so many stuff, has so many supplements across editions that it's at this point it's hard to track. Just pick the lane you want to start and basically build from there. You build your collection and whatever collection you will have from there. Which, you know, reminds me, at some point I would love to grab some WoD things physically. Like, suppose at the very least the main big ones, like the 20th anniversary, the VTM one, of course. Not sure if I will able to get my hands on like a first edition of the Hunted Reckoning, like physically speaking. Those are like White Wolf era, so I'm not sure. 20th anniversary stuff, maybe at some places I think I can still find it, even like in more like localized areas or not too far from me. I'm sure like newer edition things 100%, but I think that's one. Another one that I would love to check, and we've actually, that was like an absolute topic we discussed, was Mage. In case we'll ever get into the deep end that is Mage, because Mage is probably the, I'm not sure if it is the worst one to get in, but it's definitely a deeper end of the WoD general setting and lore and storyline to kind of get into. And gets complicated, heavy, and you need to be a bit more, because that's the thing. Depending on the splat with World of Darkness, you need to have a bit more above surface level knowledge with them. Thankfully, Vampire and Hunter are the best kind of like lower bare minimum. Hunter being, of course, the most obvious entry level or of anything when it comes to WoD, because you go under the pretense that all of you are mundane humans that do not understand the hidden world that happens during the night. So, you know, you just discover it as you go as part of a hunter, and even depending on whatever compacts or groups you have, be it imbued or just the classical hunted or vigil or just reckoning 5th edition. In either formats, it's still the same thing. Just a few have a bit more wackiness than others when it comes to powers and capabilities. But still bottom of the barrel compared to anything above any other splats, and Vampire as well, because it also has that same similar concept of you understand the hierarchical societies of the vampiric, of the kindred, Cain and Kine, to the same level a mundane human who's just been brought to the fold would. Oh, it also makes a bit of sense. In there, you just need to know maybe just slightly the particulars of your clan and certain aspects of, you know, things, especially because those chronicles are the most classical that they usually run, being like Camarilla games. Certain elements of, you know, knowing the first traditions to some extent, because those are things that are heavily reinforced, so you have to take care of, and certain aspects of boons and certain like additional layers of knowledge. But aside from that, it's just the particulars of your clan, and from that point onwards you just go as some newly brought in vampire, so it's completely fine. I think those two are the easiest entry level, and I think I've heard like depending then from that point onwards it gets heavier, because either you need to understand wider concepts of a certain setting, not necessarily because technically even with mage you could go with the idea that yeah, you can start a bit more less knowing, because you know you are an awakened mage. You just discovered that, oh, you have nigh imaginable power at the tip of your fingertips all of a sudden, and you can just spawn shit out of nowhere. You know, but you still have to have understanding of concepts like paradigm, paradox, quintessence, how exactly the spheres and circles work, the inner workings, and all those. There are other elements of complexity within how exactly you understand mage, and also how exactly you cater your mage to for yourself, because that's also like another thing. Being an open magic system, you make the mage that you want to make. And I already kind of started with an idea of my own mage, which is gonna be interesting to say the least. But yeah, anyways, tangents aside, I've got into too many tangents already. It's time to stop. It is definitely a time to stop. I think we should then get into the topic of today, which is Beamsaber, a Forge in the Dark game, or you know, basically a game that is inspired by the Blades in the Dark system when it comes to like the core framework mechanics. Which, for those who do not know, it's more heavy leaning into actions leading roleplay, or you know, a type of like dice rolling, designed and created to push the story forward. Everything about, in general, I think games that are within the Forge in the Dark systems, at the very least from what I'm understanding of Beamsaber, if not at the very least Beamsaber itself, is a system that has a lot of like narrative forward and narrative driven elements, and all the mechanical parts that you have to interact with and build and conceptualize or utilize are built with this idea in mind, to push the story forward, to go in moments of yes and no but, anything of that degree of always moving ahead, always accomplishing something. Maybe not accomplishing fully your goal, maybe accomplish certain elements of your goal. So to some extent it's a bit more dice light, let's call it, because you don't have to roll you don't have as many dice rolls as maybe some of the other games. It utilizes a dice pool system similar to maybe games like WoD and, you know, other Forge in the Dark game, but it doesn't necessarily function like WoD, where you need to hit a target success for a number amount of dice. You just need to hit a target number, and the highest of your dice pool that hits the best target number, that's gonna be your result. So usually the better you are at a skill, the higher chance you have that you're gonna hit the success margin. So that's kind of part of it. Aside from it, specifically to Beamsaber, all of it's built around the entire concepts of and tropes within the mecha, sci-fi, robot, and probably even to some extent Sentai genre, where, you know, the relationship between the pilot and the mech and even the squad are heavily ingrained. There's a lot of meaning and symbolism of the self, of humanity, of, you know, generally the human condition. And that is not just necessarily big robots fight, but it's also big robots fight, where each of those elements are their own aspect of creation, their own aspect that you have to build either on your own or alongside your game master or even the team, because you have to build your pilot, you have to create your vehicle, the mech, and you also have to create your squad, which is something that is a group activity of how you determine how the squad progresses. And all these elements progress in their own way, have their own advancements, experience, ways to obtain experience. All of those methods are story driven, so the way you obtain XP is by fulfilling elements of your story and of your character's backstory, and or at the very least succeeding through certain hardship, you gain experience through elements of like resisting certain scenarios or outcomes by doing successful dice rolls. So all of those elements are ingrained together and present within the system. Plus, there's also within those tropes elements of creating stories and rivalries and interesting moments. Speaking of, rivals, they are a big factor, and as you can even see highlighted within the cover of the book, the concept of rivals. Each character, at the very least, each session has a rival in play, if not multiple, because you can have a rival per character that is dedicated to that character, or you can have a rival that is shared by multiple characters, and depending on how important across the squad that rival is, or basically if multiple pilots have the same rival, the more important that rival is to the story, and the more likelihood it is that they're going to be a challenge to defeat for the entire squad. While in certain scenarios, if it's just a challenger for a specific squad member, then that challenge decreases. But then again, only the squad member, by achieving certain goals that are demanded by their own made narrative and goals and drive and storyline, can they successfully remove a rival from play. No matter what you do, the rivals will always resurface. So the story is kind of built on this idea that there's not like necessarily fatality. You have elements of elements where combats and scenarios can be fatal and your character can be removed from the game and TPK or even retired, depending on the state they are, which again is part of the trope within the genre, where the war wears them down to the point of either they reach self-destruction or they are no longer fit to be part of it, either because they fulfilled whatever goal they wanted, or they are at the point where they can no longer achieve the higher goal that they want, but so they now have to basically put themselves in the background and no longer become an important character to the story, becoming an NPC that could still to some extent be connected and helpful towards the party, depending on how you determine those factors, but at the very least no longer a PC. So that the player of that character has to make a new one, and of course many other elements of that aspect ingrained. I am summarizing to the best of my abilities without without getting into too lengthy about it. As I said, elements of it I've already covered. The introductory section, we looked at it 2 weeks ago. The pilot section, how to make your own pilot, and even elements of rogue actions, so on, have been covered within the pilot section a week ago. And today we are covering the vehicle. We are skipping the player principles and fiction first gaming. I'm suspecting that each chapter can interweave or can at least be taken independently. These two chapters, I want to put them along with the downtime activities chapter once we get there. So basically, I want to first focus on the things that you create, basically your character, your vehicle, and then your squad, and then look at the wider elements of how the story and the game progresses, or what other elements of progression or elements of story driven interaction you have. And of course, then finally, it's the part of the Game Master section and what exactly sort of guidelines you use as a Game Master. That's the plan. As before, I'm just want to look at the general discussions and general descriptions and details of each chapter. When you get to the point of lists, effects or abilities in depth, or anything else that is elements of customization or elements of options of actions or abilities to use, that's something I'm gonna skip. move ahead and for you to look into, because I also want to encourage you all to check it out yourselves, look at the game, try it out, get the inner depths into your own means. It's available on itch.io. It has a ton of supplements. That's also like really cool. It has also content for streaming, like some bare bones, or some baseline overlays, and a few extra assets here and there that you can utilize for your stream in case you don't have the means to do it yourself, which is also really cool. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna delay it any longer. Why not already jump into the vehicles? Okay, we'll do it like this. As I said, it's not gonna be too lengthy, so I think we're gonna go pretty fast. So let's look at least at the basic of it, that being the vehicle creation. A pilot's vehicle is not just a means of engaging in a war. It is representative of the pilot within. A vehicle reflects both the pilot's public reputation as their face and actions, and who this pilot is as a person. Pilots that favor misdirection will have vehicles that use similar methods. Those who consider themselves pawns in the conflict use basic workhorse models, while those who see themselves as grand adorn their vehicles with capes and gold. Keep this in mind as you make and use vehicles, whether you're the game master or the player. So basically, the vehicle is an extension of your character, it's an extension of yourself. It's not just a tool, so it should be it should be a character of its own, either to emphasize an existing elements of your character, or maybe tell something about your character that your pilot doesn't really show often. Or, you know, kind of have this dichotomy of what is the pilot outside of the machine, and who is the pilot within the machine. Kind of, you know, work you know, off duty persona, on duty persona sort of thing. Yeah, within this section there is a step-by-step introductory guide on creating a pilot's vehicle. However, you can also randomly generate it through an appendix, so I'm guessing most of it's very, you know, without making it very obvious, kind of not necessarily kit bashy, but modular. Easy to kind of like pull things apart and put them together. So when you're creating a vehicle, you choose its look, name its model and manufacturer. Then you choose the vehicle's load, but don't detail what gear it has at this time, and create 4 quirks for your vehicle. So way more simplified, which makes sense, because I think if you had it, or if everything was to the same levels of complexity as the pilot is, or maybe even wider than that, it would probably get quickly convoluted. And as all of this is story forward and story driven, where the dice help you kind of move the story forward, and you don't really need as many dice. You're not really there to have the hyper specifics of I do X damage, do I hit or do I not hit. No, you just tell a course of actions, then the dice determines that if that course of action goes as planned, if it goes slightly off kilter, like slightly somewhat successful, but there's some additional outcomes that you've not taken into account, or maybe even goes off kilter. Maybe it still progresses in some way, but not necessarily in the way you wanted. You wanted from the get-go. Yeah. So read a quick story blurb that we've received here and there from the book. I remember the first day I stepped into Bird. It was all this training before, of course, but being inside an MWV is hard to wrap your head around until you actually step inside. I'd only seen other AWVs before, church ones, as they pass through Arlington, and Bert looked like a rusty tractor compared to them. You know, just a grunt. I just started with the arm, just lifting it up. It felt so fucking heavy, and it was only I was only pulling off a control stick. I think sometimes it's easier to see an AWV moving from the outside and forget how slow and heavy it still is. Slow and heavy and dangerous. We're still in the old barn, and I knew if I lifted the arm over the bird's head, it would punch a hole straight through the roof. I've been thinking a lot lately about how Bert feels different now. All this new armoring and stuff. He's heavier with the new parts to make up for it. I think he moves better than he used to, but feels weird. I don't know. Dad? A while ago, I painted flowers on Bert's head to make him look less like a pile of junk. They look really out of place now. I get this sinking feeling in my gut looking at them, knowing how much more damage I could do if I'm not careful. There were all these protocols to follow when I was just piloting him in a field with no one else around. What happens if I fuck up in the middle of a battle? From the Journal of Keiko Pitchfork, Tuesday. Yeah, again, this kind of inner conflict, and to some extent even an extension of the self that is the mech. You know, once the mech has had this full-on makeover, all of a sudden it feels foreign, it feels strange. It no longer feels the vehicle and the machine that you were attached to and familiar with at the very beginning, that you've understood all of its kinks and quirks and goods and bads, and now is just altered, different. Which you can also play within the ideas of like self-identity in general as an individual, not within the vehicle. Which, you know, speaking of identity, vehicle looks. A vehicle can be anything, as long as they can ride in or in it. A mech, dump truck, a fighter jet, a tank, you name it. The rules then looks work for any piloted vehicle. Feel free to pick any number of words they describe each part of your vehicle. Just remember to avoid describing weapons or other vehicle gear. Beamsaber is a fiction-first game. Your look impacts the fiction when overcoming challenges. But that doesn't have strict mechanical benefits like extra dice. If you're taking on mountainous terrain, a vehicle with treads might have worse positioning and effect than a flying vehicle. In fact, a flying vehicle might bypass the mountains without a problem. So all of it is how you just build your own narrative about it. So yeah, here are some suggestions for vehicle looks. Mobility could be bipedal, quadrupedal, flight, hover, wheel, treads, anti-grav, rotors. Arms, it could have none, humanoid, tentacle, industrial, hardpoint, wings, ornate. Same with hands, industrialized, human, technical, weaponized, ornate. The core could be armored, armed, light, bulky, practical, massive, ornate. Head, it could have none, it could be armored. It could be armed, high-tech, ornate, or practical. Sealed, open, armored, spacious, cramped, and customize the cockpit. Sorry, I skipped a word. Gel, organic, hard light, ceramic, alloy, plastic, crystal, and finally the style: ornate, practical, improvise, custom, fashionable, sleek, powerful, and artistic. And just a quick rundown of descriptors for the lore exemplifier. Pitchfork and Dredge are crossing a river in their vehicles. Pitchfork's agrarian is quadrupedal, so it will wade through the river, while Dredge's Kettle 2.0 can hover over the obstacle. Pitchfork's player makes a controlled standard maneuver action roll, and she gets a 5. She gets across safely, but the river slows her down. Dredge doesn't roll, just flies over. Unfortunately, when Dredge gets up onto the other side of Core, of course squadmate, Ko realizes the riverbank is mined, but Ko has difficulty coming to a stop and avoid activating the mines. Ko makes a risky limited maneuver roll, getting a 4. The kettle twists and under the controls becomes unbalanced and crashes on top of to the ground just short of the minefield. Dredge is now in a desperate position. Yeah, I can tell you how you can have interesting interplay by how varied your vehicles are. So don't shy away from having a squad of pilots with different different styling of vehicles. Just make sure that in whatever campaign you are going for, none of them are going to be permanently, hindered by their aesthetic choices. When it comes to vehicle actions and attributes, when a pilot commits actions with their vehicle, they roll the relevant vehicle action rating. If a pilot remotely controls any vehicle, they have reduced effect. All vehicle action max out at 3 points, or 4 if you are unlocking the Mastery Squad upgrade, which is going to mention when we talk about squads another time. However, you may only assign a max of 2 points to one action during vehicle creation, akin to pilot creation. All vehicles actions belong to the expertise or acuity attributes. Each vehicle attribute has 3 actions. For expertise, you have which are actions that test the vehicle's physicality. You have battle for attacking at short range, destroy for raising structures with unsubtle methods, and maneuver, moving swiftly and precisely. While for acuity actions, you have, which basically refer to the vehicle's awareness, you have bombard for blasting with long range fire, manipulate for deftly handling objects, and scan for quickly assessing the situation. So again, similar to how we've seen with the characters, ways that you have both utility options and combat options for across the attributes. So it never feels like you're just investing in one side when you're deciding to lean heavy into one. The expertise and acuity attributes determine the number of quirks a player must spend when resisting consequences with their vehicle. And they gain a point of attribute XP when they perform a desperate vehicle action. And general XP can also be put into an attribute's XP track. When the vehicle's enhanced track fills through the enhanced downtime activity, an additional action point can be added to any vehicle action, or a new quirk can be gained. It's going to be mentioned a bit earlier. And finally, just a quick look. Not necessarily finally, but next you have vehicle load. Load represents their equipment installed on a vehicle. Load abstracts how much the vehicle's resources are occupied by its gear. By its gear use specifically. Resources such as weight, balance, bulk, and computing power. At the start of the very first mission, decide if your vehicle is carrying a light, medium, or heavy load. Each load has its pros and cons. Light vehicles hold less resources but are quicker, while heavy vehicles are well supplied but slow and conspicuous. Pick wisely. This will be your load for the whole campaign, unless you embark on a long-term journey project to change your vehicle's load, which can also be a possibility. For light loads, a vehicle has a max free load of 3. It's a quick and less conspicuous, giving it improved effect when those features are advantageous. A light vehicle is faster and stealthier than others, but has less versatility due to its lower load. Light vehicles are smaller, generally about 30 foot tall, allowing them to fit into places that others cannot, such as building interiors or small caverns and tunnels. Medium vehicle has a max load of 5. It looks like it's geared up for trouble. Medium vehicles strike a balance between two doctrines represented by light and heavies. Sorry. The size generally about 45 feet tall. Often gives them access to the same options as both, but they may need action rolls where smaller or larger vehicles could automatically succeed. So, the best of both worlds in a way. And finally, the heavy vehicle has a max load of 6. It's slower and looks like it's ready for war, giving the decreased effect when those features are a problem. Heavy vehicles offer great versatility, but they are less agile and more obvious than light and medium vehicles. Heavy vehicles are larger than others, generally about 60 feet tall, meaning they can frequently reach places others cannot, and they are also often out of enemy reach. Sometimes the vehicle size will be important, such as reaching a person on a rooftop. Remember to follow the fiction, so what is possible and what succeeds without an action roll may vary. If a player really wants to take advantage of their vehicle physicality, they should make a quirks related to its size and shape. So always take those into account. I just want to see how much else we have. Okay, we still have a bit more, so I'm gonna take, because I was thinking that if we were like already done with this chapter I would continue, but no, I'm just gonna take a break here, and I will return once the ad break is over to continue the topic of equipment. So yeah, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, let's continue. So a quick flavor blurb about the attributes of the vehicles. Tower, Dredge, and Pitchfork are ambushed from the top of a small office building by modified ape lightning vehicles with rockets. Tower moves the mantis inside the office building, making use of its light load and unusually small quirk to avoid getting hit. Starforge states that Dredge's kettle has armor since it is medium. The armor uses up the last available load, but Dredge takes no damage from the attack. Pitchfork's heavy agrarian already has armor and spends it to shrug off the rockets. Only the agrarian can reach the roof because the other vehicles are too small, but it's slow due to its size, and it'll take a moment to get there, long enough for another attack. Tower wants to get to the roof without opening themselves up to another barrage, but can find a way up through the building. The kettle has an analytics suite, so Dredge scans the building and finds a large service elevator that reaches the roof. So also moves the kettle behind an adjacent building to take cover. The agrarian presses on and it's too big to hide. The apes are about to fire on the agrarian when the mantis bursts from the service elevator shaft. Tower maneuvers the mantis in a distracting fashion to set up Pitchfork's imminent attack, allowing her to strike the apes with great effect. The agrarian ends the conflict with a final blow from its modified jackhammer, a fine melee weapon. Fine heavy melee weapon. Yeah, a quick exemplifying how you can build towards your benefits, your loads, and to work to your advantage and disadvantage. Now, how do you install and changing vehicle gear? Now that we are talking about loads, your vehicle begins with uninstalled load slots equally to your selected max load. When you hit upon a problem or a challenge during a mission, you may debut a piece of gear and place it in a load slot. Write that gear in an empty slot of your character sheet. Gear with load 0 doesn't fill a load slot. You can have a few things that you can call towards for free. Changing a vehicle's equipped gear is an involved process, even for vehicles with quick release hardpoints or hands. Many pieces of gear have components that are integrated with the internals of the vehicles or communicate with its computer systems, necessitating extensive calibrations and testing. Plus, there is the need of requisitioning the gear itself. So, expect uninstalling gear to cost you. A player can only uninstall a filled load slot during downtime by spending material equal to the number of slots the gear occupies. Though gear with load 2 requires 2 material to uninstall, the challenge doesn't cost a downtime activity. The change doesn't cost a downtime activity. If a piece of gear is destroyed, it continues to occupy that slot as useless junk. You've got to clean it up before installing new gear. Additionally, vehicles can only change their load category through an appropriate long-term project, that being light, medium, or heavy. So once you've picked that character at vehicle creation, once you've picked your load, that's most likely the one you're going to be stuck with for the rest of your campaign. And if you want to have the possibility, or if you want to plan out with the possibility of, oh, in the future I'm gonna have some flexibility with it, no, it's not gonna be something that you can easily do so. So plan ahead accordingly. Maybe if you are undecided, just go with a medium load, because you get a bit of the both worlds, so you can try out, feel what you like more. Do you prefer to be a bit more nimble? Do you prefer to be a bit more heavy arms? And then from there, at best, you can then as a project lean towards the play style that you like more if you don't want to be a bit more generalist. When it comes to stolen gear, that takes up an amount of load as suitable for the fiction. If you are only carrying the stolen gear, its load slots free up at the end of the mission, for no material cost. The vehicle can install the stolen gear if you want to use it on the mission, but you'll need to spend the necessary material points during downtime to uninstall it as per usual. If a pilot steals a piece of gear from a squad of a higher tier, it counts as a fine item for the next 2 missions. After the second mission, the gear loses the fine quality as the squad support infrastructure is not up to the task of maintaining that piece of gear. A long-term project could be completed to upgrade the supporting infrastructure so that piece of gear retains the fine quality permanently. Using lower tier gear provides no benefits and in fact causes a worse position or effect as the fiction demands it. So it's always better to strive for higher quality equipment. It's just something that without the effort to have the means to maintain it, you're just not gonna have it for a long term in such a state, which is an interesting goals and interesting ways to add additional reasons for you to interact with certain parts of the story or certain parts of how you manage the game, how you manage your squad and characters, and depending on here how exactly the support infrastructure is built upon, which I'm guessing it has something to do with the squad creation and like process, which is something we're gonna check at a different stream. We have elements of like general vehicle gear that has access to vehicles can access all the gear, all the general vehicle gear, its pilot specialist vehicle gear, and the squad specialist vehicle gear. You may install any of these to your vehicle up to its max load. The general is below. You can find the pilot one in the pilot's handbook, and the squad one in the squad handbook as well. So you have options. I'm not gonna look through those. It's for you to check out and explore. So now that we looked at the general parts of how to put a vehicle together, let's look at quirks. Quirks. Our vehicle's unique qualities. A pilot who is familiar with those quirks can use them to their advantage. However, these quirks aren't wholly positive. If a pilot expends all of them without maintenance, the vehicle suffers a breakdown. So quirks are more of a, it just happens to do that can be advantageous, but it's technically not by design of the vehicle. So that means that it most likely is a fault error or some sort of point of a mechanical failure that maybe jumbles its way into being good. Or you're just overusing an aspect of your mech too much. You're overusing something to the point where it just breaks down. So when it comes to creating quirks, each vehicle starts with 4. They're probably common to that vehicle's model. Vehicle may earn more quirks up to a maximum of 8 by filling the enhanced track with the enhanced downtime activity. These additional quirks are unique to this vehicle, and there are some examples on the right, but a player can make up their own. As mentioned, ominous appearance, flexible structure, military workhorse, light-footed, common parts, redundant systems, and so on. I'm gonna go for all of them, you get the idea. Each quirk has 2 descriptors that determine when the quirk can be used. These descriptors show how the pilot can push their vehicle in just the right way to get more out of it. If a vehicle has roaring fast as a quirk, the pilot can push their vehicle for more speed and noise. When selecting your descriptor, make sure that at least one of them can be interpreted as a disadvantage, because struggling with your quirks provides XP at the end of the session. So it's good to have disadvantages. It's kind of like a rubber banding effect in a way. And as we've talked, I think many have said in the past, I'm gonna say it myself, it's fun to have disadvantages. It's fun to have downsides, quirks, weird things that you have to deal with. It adds more to your character. It adds more for you to manage. And of course, you are the player. You are the one who wholly designs, or to a most extent, fully conceptualizes the character and what they have available. So you can realize. So you have the liberty of gauging how much restriction you want. If you don't want to go restrictive, of course, it's easier said in play. It's easier said. It's easier done, I would say, probably at character creation, as you can like put something together, see how it feels, and then over there. But if you, with time, you realize that there are some aspects that you don't necessarily enjoy, don't feel like too restricting, just because there can be the possibility that you have not had the forethought of certain scenarios, or did not expect that this would be as problematic as you thought in the first place. Then, you know, in those moments, you have to like you know, have discussions with the game master. I think it's even there. I would say not necessarily it's rare, but still manageable. The more complicated ones, if somehow mid-game there are methods of choosing, of shifting into a style, or shifting into something that obviously has advantages and disadvantages, but on a conceptual level, it's too broad for you to like figure out in the moment, and only once you experience it. Those are usually rougher. I've had that experience, as I said, with Vampire the Masquerade. My hunter then became vampire, shifted into a vampire clan that didn't really play into the attributes that my character benefited, even though to some elements of the narrative it had some interesting it has an interesting fit to it, but nothing when it comes to the general craziness of it all. It was a lot more like socially heavy. At the very least, the attributes were leaning a bit more. The attribute requirements were leaning more into the social aspects, which they mean not, which made it a bit rough to not really have access to certain benefits of certain of some of the powers available to them. Those moments can be a bit rougher, but when you're creating it yourself, yeah, go crazy, have fun with it, because it more often than not, it's gonna create unusual and odd scenarios that are gonna be way more memorable and way more interesting to kind of plan out and figure out how exactly you're gonna handle them. Even as we were like discussing with the vampire shenanigans that I've just kind of like vaguely mentioned, through some of those discussions and concepts that were like put forward, because there are some interesting newer horrific kind of downsides to that we are the storyteller has and been debating towards. Because of the concept that I had in mind, I just decided I want to fully lean into this. Just give me these entire like disadvantages, and let's see where that gets us. Let's just get into it way the fuck worse and see where we go from there. So yeah, we'll see. I have some ideas. It's gonna be interesting if we are gonna ever jump into those. It's still a bit unclear, and as I said, if it's gonna be a thing, it's probably gonna be way later, somewhere in the summer, something like that. So yeah, don't expect it anytime soon. But anyways, back to the topic of quirks and the idea of, you know, having disadvantages, because they're always interesting. So if you are having troubles coming up with quirks, look at the specialist vehicle gear available to playbooks other than your own. Think of negative descriptors you can add to that gear and take the two as a quirk. For example, you could have intermittent optical camo, fragile magnification suite, or cumbersome electronic filters. And from that point onwards, you can move on. A player can speak to the game master if they discover their quirk isn't a good fit for them or their vehicle. If your quirk hasn't seen much action, just change it and move it on as if it was always that way. If the narrative has changed the vehicle's nature, making the quirk no longer applicable, then describe what changed and how it changed, and just change the quirk. Yeah, just progress the narrative. I would say, when I said the whole thing with leaning towards possible downsides, that you realize that long term they are more restricting than you want them to be. In the case of Beamsaber, at least here the narrative and this whole aspect of it only exists once it comes into play, it makes it a bit easier to adapt and adjust, especially if we're talking about downsides that never get played out. So at least you can adapt on the fly, and of course here, because everything is narrative forward, as the narrative changes, so do the mechanics. There's no other restrictors about it, because you have some mechanical requirements to advance the narrative in most such scenarios. It's not just, at the very least for those that matter, which definitely changing the vehicle would be a narrative point that for you to work towards. Now, when it comes to using quirks, a pilot can exhaust a quirk to push their vehicle for one of the following benefits: add an additional dice to the vehicle action roll, improve an effect with the vehicle action, or taking a vehicle action when the vehicle has level 3 damage. This may activate certain abilities, such as the Hacker's Tesla ability, which triggers the pilot when the pilot pushes themselves or their vehicle. You may also activate one ability per quirk. If a pilot has multiple abilities that activate when a quirk is spent, each must be paid using quirk, so it's a quirk per ability. Not quirk to... The quirk is a resource, not a requirement, not a requirement of enabling. A pilot can also exhaust quirks to resist consequences while using the vehicle. The game master picks the attribute the pilot must resist, and then they spend the quirks. Resisting costs 4 quirks, so you basically have to use... Oh, minus the chosen attribute's rating, sorry. The minimum of 1, so at least you still lose a quirk. Even if a special ability would reduce it to 0 or less. If the cost is more than the available quirks, the vehicle can still resist by spending all remaining quirks. For example, if a vehicle has an expertise attribute rating of 2, say at least 1 maneuver and 1 battle, the resistance expertise cost 2 quirks. So you can just spend it all together. Whether pushing a vehicle or resisting consequences, a quirk can only be exhausted when one or more of its descriptors would be advantageous. When you exhaust a quirk, describe how you take the advantage of it, and then mark the box next to it. So yeah, quirks are equally a resource, equally something that offers you some benefits, or give you access to certain powers, or in some cases abilities as mentioned here, depending on case. And also the quirks play into the trope and fantasy that we've seen with mecha in general, where in those desperate moments where you're pushing your beaten down machine of war to its very limits, simply because it has the means to do so in some way or another, and push it to its ultimate extreme. And depending on how everything turns out, that vehicle may or may not be intact by the end of it. To kind of get a quick story blurb, Scarecrow moves to an urban combat zone in her claymore, engaging enemy combat engineers. She turns a corner and finds herself face to face with an enemy elephant. She opens fires. Because she is close range, chooses to roll battle and pushes her vehicle. Jess, which is the Scarecrow's player, spends a quirk for oversized reactor to push herself, and describes how Scarecrow uses her vehicle's powerful engine to quickly charge and fire off an accurate snapshot on the elephant, and she rolls a 5. The elephant is destroyed, but as it crashes forward, it sets off a trap laid by the enemy engineers. The trap causes 2 levels of damage, crushed, as demolition charges pull a building onto Jess's vehicle. Jess resists the consequences, and the Game Master says that she must use Acuity. Scarecrow has an Acuity rating of 2, 1 from her 1 point in Bombard and 1 from her 1 point in Scan, so she must spend 2 quirks, 4 minus her Acuity rating of 2. She also describes how she uses the quirk and attribute to avoid the trap. Jess marks off the compact design and aggressive targeters. He then describes how the overactive targeting system lets Scarecrow spot the trap at the last moment, and how the Claymore, this narrow building, allows her to get out from under the collapsing building. So yeah, you have ways to kind of pick your quirks and create a narrative to it, because that's the thing. You're building a narrative for this moment that has just suddenly happened. Like, you're improvising as you go, and you're adding a ton of like description, flavor, narrative, and moments that highlight why you are distinct, why you are unique, why you are different compared to the others in your squad, or how exactly your methods of doing things is different than the rest. So it's never gonna feel like you're out there rolling a dice, I do damage, here's the damage, I'm done, turn over, and nothing else. Here it's all about describing the narrative, telling you in detail how exactly you specifically get out of this scenario, and through the mechanics you basically decide which are those elements that go into play to describe that moment. And also it's a good helpful tool to assist people who have a bit of a problem to improv on the spot, because basically you're giving the main prompt. Here are the two characteristics of how I escape. You come up with the inner detail. You come up with the finer details on how exactly those plays out. But you at least have the starting point. You're giving the framework. You're just putting the grander details, which makes you feel more connected to the narrative, to the story, to your vehicle, because you realize like, hey, this is my vehicle. This is what my vehicle is capable of, and could probably inspire you and make you realize that, oh, this maybe is something that I can use in the future. Maybe you, out of pure desperation, or just because that's the quirk you had available, it pushed you to kind of think outside the box, think of a narrative or of a scenario that you would have not thought in if you had the options. And now you have a new perspective on how this quirk can be put into play, and you could put it into play and let it use for that. So now it also enabled you a bit more variety. When a vehicle exhausts all its quirks, which is 4 in most cases, its pilot can either send the vehicle limping home quietly or push past its limit. If the pilot chooses to send their vehicle away, it refreshes all quirks, is removed from the scene and mission in a terrible state, and gains a breakdown tick. The pilot does not have to leave the scene or mission. The vehicle becomes available again at an appropriate time, presumably after it's been refueled and polished, or probably after either a significant amount of time within the mission, or most likely after the mission. If the pilot pushes their vehicle past its limits, they take a dire action. The pilot can ignore the vehicle's current damage penalties for a single action. It cannot exhaust quirks to take this action, nor can it resist consequences, since all its quirks are exhausted. The rest can be used as normal. If it gets 6 on its dire action, it can take another vehicle action, potentially allowing it for several successful actions. If the pilot gets less than 6, or chooses to stop taking actions, that's it for them. Other pilots can still act between the vehicle's dire actions. On a result of less than 6, they suffer consequences as normal. But from that point on, you're out of the mission. You pushed yourself to your limits. At this point, the vehicle is out of action. After taking its last action, or if the scene ends, the vehicle receives an appropriate level 3 damage, is removed from the scene and mission, and gains a breakdown tick. If the pilot rolls a critical success, refresh one quirk of their choice instead of having improved effect, and no longer takes dire action, returns acting to normal. They avoid taking a breakdown tick and the level 3 damage. So they're back to level 2. Similar to how the pilot works as well, you're having this kind of like frenzied rush of adrenaline to kind of push onwards, and depending on how well you do and how well you get this rush, it's just gonna keep you permanently, or it's just a fast boost. Start to finish. When it comes to quirks and experience, a pilot marks XP at the end of the session if they suffered the repercussions of their vehicle quirks during a session. This can occur through narrative play, such as missing opportunities, needlessly creating trouble, or through the consequences of an action roll. Then tell the game master if you'd like a quirk to cause you trouble, and they'll add an appropriate consequence to your roll, regardless of the result if you wish. So if you feel like at a certain point in the narrative, you feel like this quirk would offer a drawback, and you just want it as part of the narrative and as part of the telling of your character, then you can lean into that. It's encouraged, and at the end of the day, you gain XP out of it. So there is a reason for you to lean into that. You gain something mechanical. It's not just purely for the narrative. If it's not just only the narrative that you want. Although, you know, if you're playing the system, to some extent you are inclined to play the narrative, or at the very least you invested in it or vested in it. Then, when it comes to damage is a major blow that impedes a vehicle. Level 1 damage reduces the effect of the vehicle's action. Level 2 gives 1 minus dice to the vehicle actions. And level 3 means that the vehicle can act without being pushed by exhausting 1 quirk or receiving assistance from a squad mate. Level 3 damage and lower can be removed between missions by using the fixed downtime. So it's not permanent. A vehicle that suffers 4 level damage or fatal damage is destroyed beyond repair. Any pilot inside the vehicle immediately suffers appropriate level 3 harm, which they can resist as normal. An engineering action can salvage the vehicle's best parts on a mission, which generates 1 supply point and a 4 or higher. Otherwise, the entire vehicle can be towed away for salvage during downtime. So you can lose your vehicle, and depending on your luck, you might also be in a really bad spot yourself. So it's always good to kind of take care. And be careful how you manage your vehicle. When it comes to breakdown is permanent damage to the vehicle where only the symptoms can be treated. Each time a vehicle gains a point of breakdown, the last quirk used becomes degraded in some way to represent the symptoms. The player can modify the quirk's existing descriptor, or add a new negative one. A pilot can use long-term projects to fix these changes or remove 1 or more breakdown points. However, it will likely be an involved process requiring at least 8 ticks. Use the fiction and tone to inform how hard the process is in the campaign. When a vehicle acquires its 4th breakdown tick, it is worn down beyond repair or function and must be scrapped or salvaged during downtime, so akin to being destroyed. And here are like mentions of additional descriptors that can be added. Leaning, smoking, clumsy, sparkling, overheat, glitchy. For a story example, Pitchfork pushed her agrarian past its limits, and it gained a point of breakdown. She must now degrade the final quirk she used, slow and heavy. She considered its changes the quirk to slow, clumsy, and heavy. But she ultimately decides to go with unresponsive and heavy. So now has a harder time to react to input or to act on input, and it's still a lumbering tank. Again, things to drive the narrative forward, and it has a bit of not randomness, but elements of, depending on how the events turn out, that's what determines breakdown. Now, when it comes to vehicle advancements, as we talked about the vehicle's loss, how exactly you make it better, pilots wanting to improve their vehicle must perform desperate vehicle actions, the enhanced downtime activity, or just put general XP in their attributes. Rolling a desperate vehicle action immediately earns the vehicle 1 XP, the attribute roll, or general XP can be put into an attribute at the end of the session. When the attribute reaches 6 XP, the player can add 1 action point to any action that has that attribute, to a maximum of 3, or 4 if the squad has the mastery upgrade. Then you reset the attribute XP back to 0 to basically clear the track to progress for your next action point. When it comes to the enhanced downtime activity, this one lets them pilot mark 1 box of their vehicle enhanced track, or 2 boxes if the squad has the testing facility upgrade. When the track fills, to 6 marks. You may add an action point to any vehicle or create a new quirk, then you reset the track back to 0. You do that all over again. So yeah, quite obvious out of the box. Scripters, nothing new here to mention or to kind of talk about. Quite simple and easy to understand. I suspect we're going to go through this pretty fast and today because it's a bit shorter, and I'll see how exactly we're feeling within the gapping scenario. But so far so good. Not much to add here. It's because it's quite obvious because the vehicle is an extension of the pilot, so a lot of the mechanical function the same way. Is just more with mechanical particularities. It's not necessarily as in depth because the quirk is a bit like a more simplified version of how it works, how you have like the disadvantages within the pilot, but it's still something there for you to use that is familiar. Then, how do you acquire a new vehicle? Pilots will sometimes use a vehicle different to the one created at character creation. This could be to a number of reasons, but the reason generally falls into one of the 3 categories. Replacing the vehicle, it's a temporary one, or it's a borrowed one. Replacing the vehicle takes a great deal of resource and effort. A pilot has 3 routes acquiring the new replacement vehicle. You either buy it, and you must first have the patron faction, cohort, or ally that can sell them a vehicle. The pilot must also spend the material points equal to double the new vehicle's load, plus the squad's tier. Then the player picks the vehicle load. Oh, no, the player can pick the vehicle load when they make this decision, so they can manage to some degree the price point. Not so much if you have a really advanced squad. Acquiring a new vehicle using less honest means through a mission or long-term project. You acquire vehicles. The acquired vehicle starts with level 2 damage and it sounds familiar. In addition to any other damage sustained, the Game Master determines its max load and deputed gear it comes with based on the established fiction. It cannot have any available load, so you can acquire it in by faster means, but it's not necessarily going to be tailor-made to what you are looking for. Most scenarios it's not going to be that. Then finally you just accept the squad-based hand-me-down vehicle. The vehicle comes as is with the same load, installed gear, damage, and everything else. So hey, if you feel like you want to share, or you have another player that is the money bags, wanted to get a shiny new upgrade, you have ways, you have options. When it comes to purchasing and acquiring the replacement vehicle, you adopt the squad's tier level. Either the vehicle improves its systems to their standard, if lower, or the squad may lack the infrastructure to maintain the level of quality if higher. So if you're trying to go for something a bit more expensive, bougie, or whatever you want to call it, just fancier, and it's more likely that you're going to have a hard time to keep it to that level of polish and capability. Or otherwise, if you just go below your standards, below your infrastructure, then, or your maintenance capabilities, or up to the max to your maintenance capabilities, it might not necessarily be as shiny, but at least you can manage it. Again, I'm talking more in an early game scenario. Replacement vehicles are also created using the normal vehicle creation rules, so using the same concepts, and they always begin with 4 quirks, so you can't have. If you invested with quirks with your previous vehicles, just so you know, it might not be to your favor. If you utilize those heavily, so it gives you a bit of like something to think on and ponder. When it comes to temporary vehicles, there may be times where a pilot needs a temporary vehicle. Maybe they hijacked an enemy vehicle, or they need a different ride for one mission. Here's what you need to know about piloting a temp vehicle. Temporary vehicles down to replace the vehicle the pilots already has on the character sheet. You gain improved effect when controlling a temporary vehicle with higher tier than your squad, and reduce effect if it's a lower tier. Tier is usually determined by the squad. Determined tier by the squad that usually operates the vehicle. That's fair. Then another way is temporary vehicles do not have quirks or traditional damage track. They have a temporary vehicle clock representing its ability to function. The vehicle is destroyed in a spectacular fashion, might add, when the clock fails. Mundane vehicles such as a sedan, shuttle, jet, and so on just have 4 ticks of progress clock, and while enemies vehicles such as tanks and mechs, fighter jets have 6 tick progress clock. So depending on what you choose, some can break down easier than others. When it takes damage, the game master adds a number of ticks to the progress clock according to the consequent numbers. And finally, the pilot can push the temporary vehicle by adding 2 ticks to the progress clock and 3 ticks to resist consequences. Enemy may overfill the clock, which will destroy the vehicle entirely and probably hurt you bad as well. So, be careful with that. And finally, with the borrowed vehicles, when a pilot gets into a squad's mate's vehicle, their own vehicle is generally not replaced, and you use the replacement rules if it is a hand-me-down. Borrowed vehicles work like this. The pilot uses the borrowed vehicle's installed gear, but only the owner can debut the new gear, so can't really call back to something pre-existing. Mark damage and exhausted quirks on the owner's character sheet, the same as if they were in cockpit. You're breaking someone else's toy, not your own, at the end of the day. And the pilot in the borrowed vehicle uses their own vehicle actions and attributes. They can nudge the vehicle in unexpected ways, but this is an unfamiliar rig, can't take full advantage of its owner's vehicle action rating. So I'm guessing certain benefits to quirks are not available. Probably some abilities cannot be put into use either. So you are losing some elements. And finally, there's actions in depth. I'm just gonna look at the meeting blurb. The section contains extended descriptions of the examples of each vehicle action. When your pilot attempts to challenge or does something with an element of change, typically name the action they're using to overcome what's in front of them and perform an action roll. Battle is to engage in vehicle close quarter combat, lash out with your scoop arm, fire your Gatling gun in a dogfight, but so it can also be close quarter weaponry, not necessarily just melee weaponry. Like, firearms, I'm saying, when I say close quarter. Bombard is use the vehicle weapons designed to attack targets from beyond human sight. Designate long-range missile targets. Shoot a railgun for a skyscraper at an enemy, and so on. Destroy is to employ overwhelming destruction through your vehicle, carpet bomb a military base, smash a building with a wrecking ball, and so on. Maneuver is to move your vehicle with skill and agility, fly through the valley between skyscrapers, creep across an unsteady bridge. Manipulate is to deftly move things with your vehicle, remove the prime warhead from a missile, pick up a baby in its carriage. Oh boy, the baby is gonna be having a trip. And the last one is scan to discern the truth around you through your vehicles. Identify the model of approaching vehicles, spot heat signatures of an active generator. Common tropes you expect to see from a scanner system. And I think in-depth elements are going to be mentioned somewhere later. Yeah. Oh no. Oh, it was just extending descriptors. Okay, fair enough. But at the least you get an idea. And as I said before, you just you have a selection of both utility and combat for both selection of attributes, which is really nice. So it never feels like you're leaning towards a non-combative aspect of your character, and you're gonna have something lacking, or vice versa, you're leaning into combative aspects of the character, but You're not going to have anything social or utility-wise. All the attributes, from what I've seen, both for the pilot and the vehicles, offer you benefits in most scenarios, be it combat, social, or exploratory or puzzle, let's call them. With the replacement vehicle, it's quite obvious, quite simple that, yeah, in most scenarios, you replace your vehicle, which is going to be a costly effort, and you have the same advantages as before, depending on how you, but maybe with some caveats depending on choose. But quite obvious with the borrowed and temporary vehicles, you are not going to have full access to what you wanted to, what you'd normally use. So these should never be like an ideal thing unless the vehicle itself has some sort of like MacGuffin weapon that might be your problem solver for some reason or another. But otherwise, in most scenarios, it's just going to be, this is what I'm using. A good way to also like have them thrown into like moments where if the player is out of commission with has their vehicle out of commission and they require at the very least to have something as a replacement, you can just go the temporary option, which is not going to encourage the player too much to keep this mech, either because, you know, it's in its name temporary, meaning that it's probably going to be asked back, or secondly because of the mechanics of it are way simplified and they are technically easier to destroy and easier to be dealt with. There is also a likelihood that they're not going to see the end of the mission. So you're never going to have to necessarily worry of giving the players something to use temporarily aside from their machine of war. And, you know, speaking of machines of war, battle. When you battle, you engage in vehicular close combat. VCC. You might lash out with your scoop arm, you might fire your Gatling gun in a dogfight. In a flashback, you might have feigned an attack to increase security. You could not perform a pit maneuver. You could perform a pit maneuver, but maneuver might just be better. When it comes to the Game Master questions, what close range weapon are you using to attack? How lethal are you trying to be? Disabling the target, blowing it up, killing the pilots? How do you feel as you bring this massive weapon to bear? So you have some things to decide and some things to kind of take into account when you're asking the players to describe. And you have some examples. For controlled, you snared an enemy vehicle with your tangled gun. Now it's your time to finish them off with your melee weapon. On a 1 in 3, it's a risky opportunity. They block your first attack and partially tear free from the constraints, but you could remove them from the fight some other way, such as talking them down, or you could keep them attacking from a risky position. So you go down a position. On a 4 or 5, it's a complication. You take down the foe, but you might but your excitement traps you in your own snare, and it takes some more to get loose. There. Or risky, as you clash blades with your rival, you see an opportunity to strike. You take it, knowing they could break through your defenses at any moment. A 1 to 3, the opening was a ploy. Your rival parries your blade to the ground, then stomps on it. The blade shatters and you must junk that piece of vehicle gear. Worst positions. 4 or 5, which leads to a worse position. Your blade slides through their vehicle's core, but they use it to their advantage. They twist the blade from your arm and from your hands. Disarmed, you are now in a desperate position. And with desperate positions, while you exchange gunfire with the enemies, you retreat in search of better cover. Unfortunately, you get cut off in an open parking lot, while your foes take cover amongst low apartment blocks. On a 1 to 3, you are damaged before you can provide yourself some covering. They light you up with their directed energy beams, and you take level 3 damage, slagged. On a 4 to 5, you have a reduced effect. You open fire to buy yourself some time. You get generally several hits in, but the apartment buildings blocks much of your attack. So you have ways to... Oh, we were actually reading the in-depth My brain is mush. We're actually reading the in-depth options. Wonder why it was so descriptive. It was so descriptive. But hey, at least you have an idea of how exactly they are. They are used together. Then we have the aspect of vehicles in the world. And that's it? Huh. It was way fucking faster than I expected. We'll have to look to see if there's anything else for us to check. While also looking at the vehicles in the world. That was faster than I expected. Hold up. Huh. Main squad and factions, we'll leave that for next time. Maybe we could have done the player principles in fiction first gaming. Maybe. We could have done that. We'll see. But anyways, in general, I love the concept of how exactly these actions individually they are detailed. You are given some exemplary of what exactly to look for as a game master in what the player should describe, and you have good examples on from which position, from certain position, what exactly these abilities could offer, these actions could offer to the pilot. So it's really, I really like the details that they offer to it. So it's not just, oh yeah, you do X, and here are like some examples, or maybe just a very simplistic example, and that's kind of it. Basically kind of throws you into it and just figure out the inner details for yourself. Or again, being a narrative forward, and you write the narrative, and everything is kind of like generalized to be like to help you mold the action or mold the attribute where you see it better fit. It's an advantage, definitely. So having it being a bit more wide encompassing doesn't also limit you, because that's another thing. Sometimes the more granular you get, the more limiting you can be in like trying to figure out. So you have to like find a solution how be more flexible when utilizing skills and how exactly applicable the skills are. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break as an ad break is about to come up. Then we'll check vehicles in the world, and we'll see what else we can talk about. While at least for like another hour total. So I want at least 3 hours to have of stream, and at least. So yeah, I'll take a break now, and I'll be right back. Okay, there we are. I realized I was not muted. I'm not sure if you've heard anything, so oh well. I guess you're gonna have a low time window. You're just gonna hear the inner workings that happen behind the scenes, which, to be fair, right now, because I took a bit of a longer break, because I was also grabbing a snack, because I haven't really eaten much today. I've been on a hyper focus all over the place sort of day where I forgot to do the thing of surviving, that is eating. Which, in fair, it's probably another reason for me to not push more in this hour. So we're probably gonna be done within the next 50 minutes. Plus, as I was eating, somebody in one of the servers that I am in that is equally obsessed with Warframe posted a screen cap of the quality of life changes for the upcoming Shadowgrapher or Shadowgrapher release. I see like from this screen cap, I see also the frames design overall, like I think finalized design, which I really like. I need to a bit more to visualize than this still, because I'll be honest, she's heavy in detail, and I'm having a hard time to like figure out like the face structure. As I'm looking at it, I'm not sure if that's an alternate head or the base head, because I'm pretty sure from the preview we received initially from I was about to say the Shadowgrapher. It's the meme stuck in my head, the Shadowgrapher, the Shadowgrapher. From the looks of it, from the previous like Shadowgrapher like tease, she had like a different hair styling or like headpiece styling, let's call it, or attempt of a head or hair, whatever. But yeah, I really like her design. She's interesting, and I love like the black and whites and shades of gray kind of look to her. The weapon looks cool. I'm not sure what it looks kind of like a precision rifle, which I'm kind of meh about it if that's the case, because I'm like, oh man, I just want precision rifles. But yeah, I saw like the quality of life blurb and just some interesting things. Survival speed up, spawn and search for a security bypass to speed survival timers, which is really cool to have like some random event that keeps the survival interesting, because I always felt like at times it just felt a bit drag or like drab, not necessarily just you're just out there killing enemies, which is cool for like the power fantasy, but they're really lengthy. Like 5 minutes for every reward here can be a lot compared to other games compared to other ones where maybe they're a bit faster within reward tiers, like excavations are way faster when it comes to reward, depending on how lucky you are with your excavators, with your power cells, and if you have a necros that can spawn extras and so on. Which also, they also mentioned for the excavator missions, they're improving the durability for excavators, which I do like, because I've been in Cryotic and Eximus farm the past few days, specifically the Cryotic one, and I've had moments where I just blinked for a few seconds and the excavator was done. I don't have like some higher defense frame, like the closest thing I have currently for like crowd control defense is necros. And to be fair, because I'm farming, I'm also farming for Eximus, so I'm doing a Europe excavation mission to also grab some Oxium as well, because I need Oxium to other crafts, and those are like the hardest resources to farm. And I've like noticed that sometimes if you're not careful, even with frames that to some extent have good crowd control, not necessarily the best of crowd controls, because yes, in a case of like protecting something to not get damaged, something like a frost would be way better. Just I'm limited in Warframe slots. Literally, I'm at my Warframe cap when it comes to slots. I can technically buy a few, but I'm waiting on it for a bit. So far, I'm fine with what I have, and we'll see. Yeah, I'm glad to see that. Apparently, some cold status and Arctic Eximus reworks. So that's interesting to see how exactly the cold status is going to be worked. Because cold status was, aside from like the slow effects, it also had this had the built-in crit bonus. I'm hoping that the crit bonus stays. Maybe they're like reworking some of the downsides of like the kind of slow frozen effects. Maybe, who knows? I'm looking at the blurb here. I've not watched the live because it happened today. I think it probably happened as we were like doing this. I don't even remember the hour. So interesting clan overhaul stuff, which is cool to see, to make clans more relevant outside of just getting items. Because once you get the items, the clans are kind of pointless, I think, if I remember correctly. Speaking of, because I was saying about grinding Cryotic, because I need the thought of Cryotic and quite a good chunk of Oxium. Warframe and weapon grind reductions, so hopefully that's gonna make my grinds safer, although I'm not suspecting by the time I'm actually gonna finish up with what I'm currently grinding, this is gonna hit. So I'm just gonna have to suffer for the grind for the time being. Dark Refractory Fast Travel, which I'm not sure what that is. Suspecting some sort of like from later in the storyline, some sort of location. Mantle animation improvements. Animations, which I'm suspecting that has something to do with how fast the animations are and how quickly you mantle. Because sometimes I've had jank moments of getting like mantle or like vaulting in weird ways, and I felt like I was kind of like getting stuck myself in weird moments of vaulting when I didn't want to vault. So I'm wondering if that's also going to be part of it. But yeah, neat. At the very least for quality of life. Again, this is just a blurb of quality of lives. I've not looked at what's coming up. I'm probably going to look after the stream is done. Exciting to see. Pretty cool. Anyways, let's get back to our topic at hand, which is the vehicles in the world. The final chapter for today. So, a vehicle is not an uncommon piece of equipment in Beamsaber. While many citizens can access automobiles of varying styles and sizes, and even some civilians' versions of pilot vehicles, vehicles available to pilots are in a different league. They are larger, tougher, more versatile, and have built-in life support. The following sections describe the story behind these vehicles. So, when it comes to light vehicles, they are generally about 30 feet in length or height, depending on the nature of the vehicle. Some are smaller though, all are designed so the pilot remains entirely contained within the vehicle's cockpit. Although commonly larger automobiles like light vehicles aren't always conspicuous, especially when their civilian equivalents can be similar in appearance. This is similar to how public transit buses stand out in a sea of cars, but they rarely get a second look. So yeah, they might be a bit above the average vehicle size, normal vehicle size, like civilian one, but not necessarily enough to raise eyebrows. Most people would say like, it's just an odd model of a whatever car, automobile, or mode of transporter they have around. For medium vehicles, they are average approximately 45 feet in length or height, give or take maybe 5 feet, so we can make it bulkier or wider if you want. These are always notable when seen and arouse curiosity from onlookers. The reactions to a medium is comparable to the presence of a police command vehicle. It occupies a lot of space physically and mentally. It's not inherently dangerous, but something serious is going down if it's there. So, you know, it's kind of like seeing a lot of like the public service vehicles of sorts, you know, ambulances, you know, police vehicles, firefighting trucks, all that sort of thing. They bring attention. While with heavy vehicles, they max out at 60 feet in length or height. Anything larger requires a full crew, proportionate to its size, so putting it beyond the scope of this game. Heavies are always a sign that someone's day is about to be ruined. Unless presented in an exceedingly friendly manner, which is probably a ton of effort, the general public gives heavies a wide berth. Imagine a missile truck located in a public space. Gives an idea of how much of a heavy vehicle stands out. So it's literally the military ordnance just in your local parkyard. Like, that's it. So yeah, rough if you encounter that kind of thing. And gives you an idea on how exactly to roleplay in scenarios, or to interpret in scenarios of where civilian locations are at play, and maybe the element of being incognito or as less seen as possible important. When it comes to the history of vehicles, consider the relationship that the character has had with the vehicles of Beamsaber, as it will color the nature of your campaign. Here are some questions to determine their place in your world. These are good questions for everyone to consider during character creation. Are vehicle heirlooms passed down from parent to child? For example, in a culture where vehicles are inherited through bloodlines or other traditions, it implies a number of expectations. Vehicles are incredibly valuable, monetarily, historically, and emotionally. Vehicles are an obvious symbol of wealth and power. Pilots are usually expected to provide their own vehicles when they join the war. The ruling body's military power, in turn, is dispersed amongst its citizens, or at least those powerful enough to own these vehicles. People with vehicles can access people with the skills to maintain them, further cementing their wealth. And possibly vehicles are probably old. They may be lovingly maintained, dilapidated, full of improvised fixes, or some combination of the above. It could be that new ones aren't being made anymore, and parts must be salvaged from other vehicles. So, you know, you're basically in the idea that you're running an 1960s, 1970s model that is basically long out of production, and good luck finding spare parts that still work. Because even though for my limited knowledge of engineering and like car manufacturing, because you know we're using cars as an example, a comparison here. Even though the combustion engine and the car engine, it's almost identical in design and principles. We're talking about like the general engine, not something like the diesel engine. There's just the general petrol engine. Overall, it's the same, but each manufacturer does it in its different ways. You know, more supercar style of vehicles may have engine arrangements different ways, number of pistons, all that sort of shenanigans. Other accoutrements added alongside with it that, I don't know, give her an extra for some reason. Yeah, the more things get altered, the more then, you know, and the costumes become more unique to that specific type of model. Which, in general, I think in mass manufacturing, I think they do it as less as possible, just because it's machinery is expensive. Machinery that makes those parts specifically, are expensive to make and to maintain, and to basically have a plethora of them to keep making every custom part for every model in production. Which is why you see the whole discussion of like certain cars that have a specific type of engine, or have an engine identical to this one, or it's an engine from X model or X brand. It's because it's simpler sometimes to just get the parts and the components that already exist and just put them in a new frame, in a new body frame, and that's it. Sometimes it's just simpler to do that and cheaper, and can probably yield you the same results. So similar to here, like, and once things get out of manufacturing, it gets harder and harder, because the models available are gonna get lesser and lesser, depending on how quickly some of them break down or are maintained, depending on how widely spread they are across the globe, or in this context across galaxies. It becomes even harder, and so yeah, good luck finding someone else who owns this retro vehicle, let's call it, or vintage vehicle, and have the part that you need be working in theirs as well. Yeah. And also, as another question to ask yourself, are the vehicles fresh off the line? If vehicles are made regularly, then manufacturing base exists in the setting. Further, powerful organizations will use vehicles to maintain and expand their influence. Low-ranking and inexperienced pirates will have access to them. They may be used for more frivolously, as they can be easily placed. So, again, yeah, if they're mass manufactured, it's easier to just swap things around them in all sorts of places. Kind of in that idea. Plus, of course, any corporation would like to have the box standard fleet unit, let's call it, which is also what you'd call a mass manufacturing model. Then, are they seen as heroic, cowardly, monstrous, or something else? A culture in your campaign might portray those vehicles as the modern equivalent of chivalrous knights, valiantly fighting to protect the homeland. Perhaps others disdain them for taking the human element out of the battle, becoming a symbol of a world too eager to indulge in massive battles. Or maybe their raw destructive power is emphasized in the public's mind, so they become monsters, mechanical beasts that easily kill a person, accidentally or intentionally. Others may see the vehicles as a tool, as most aren't armed and are considered little more than bulldozers with legs. So yeah, perception is another part to add to the storytelling, and how exactly, either from the culture you're part of, the culture the campaign it sets itself, or the perception that you yourself have towards the vehicles. All of them have important interplay, and how exactly then they interact with each other, and you with the world, and vehicle with it as well. Then maybe have they been introduced to the war recently, or have they existed for generation? If the types of vehicles available to pilots are new to the war, there will be more uncertainty about them. Commanders won't know how to make use of them, people won't know how dangerous they are, and certain parts may be difficult to obtain. If they've existed for a while, most of those problems will be absent. They'll have a rather mundane reputation. Yeah. Quite akin to, I think like Iron-Blooded Orphans in a way kind of reminds me of this, where, they were a Mars colony of, if I remember correctly, some sort of excavation, quarry, mining unit within Mars. And through their digging, they just discovered Barbados, one of the Gundam mechs of the Union. I'm not sure if it's called the Union, because Iron Blooded Orphans is a separate timeline from Universal timeline. I forgot what the factions were called. It was a lot more interpersonal than faction related. And for a good time, you saw the characters utilizing mining mechs that were purely for the purpose of being used for utilitarian purposes, and then retrofitted for war. and then immediately jumped into using Barbados. And from the very beginning, it was shown that even from the start, it looked like it either lacked parts or it was missing parts, or it was way more a bare bones of a model if it was mass produced whenever that model existed in its time, because there was also aspects of war building that they told that these were all machines of war lost to time. So it clearly looked like a stripped down model of it, and when it got damaged, well, there was a good point of time that the mech was the way it was for a while, until people with resources and money were able to maybe retrofit or figure out equivalent replacement parts, and then basically make it better and better. Because I think Iron Battle Orphans did also follow that trope, which I think a lot of mechas in more recent years, and I think also Gundam followed that, is where the mech, as you progress with the story, kind of also gets its own boost, and it kind of shows the power up and the advancements of the character in a very visual sort of way, by visually changing the mechs, the protagonist mechs as well. And Barbados was, in this case, was one of them, because from that stripped bare bones model, it had like, I think 4 more stages. You had Barbados, Barbados Rex, Lupus Barbados. I forgot exactly, because I think it was Lupus Barbados, because I fucking have that one. Barbados, I completely forgot. The box is too far for me to read. Damn it. I know it was then Lupus. I think it was Barbados Lupus, and then it was Lupus Rex. And I know then there was a 4th one which basically added another moniker to that name, and it was like the top one, which was heavily armored. I personally like the 2 in-betweeners, like Lupus and Lupus Rex. Those 2 are like my favorite personally. I like the more streamlined design that it had, and not necessarily as bare bones as the initial Barbados was. Plus, from what I heard, the high grade model kit for that version is a bit finicky. I'm glad that I went with with Barbados Lupus, in my opinion, with the 2nd tier. Let's call it of a high grade. But fun mech. Anyways, oh yeah, that's it. That covers the mech. Because from this point on, we go into the squad section, which I'm not gonna cover, and I'm not gonna go into the details or depth about anything else for today. I think it's probably worth it for me to just kind of keep it a bit more on the down low today. It's quite obvious, because in most aspects the story and the system is focused a lot more towards the player, or towards the pilot, and where the mech is an extension of the pilot. And this clearly defines that by just having additional things for you to work towards, or additional actions and abilities for you to have. But overall, it's the pilot that really defines how this vehicle works, and how this vehicle is built, and how this vehicle interacts with the world, and how the vehicle is an extension to yourself. Because the pilot playbook also defines what type of pilot you are, so that kind of defines what kind of vehicles, or how exactly do you treat your vehicle as well. So it makes sense that it's more of a slight extension. It doesn't have the in-depth customization that Lancer has, which for some it could be a good thing, for some it could be a bad thing. Again, this system is more focused towards being a story forward, a system where it's all about telling the narrative and not necessarily, or mentioning a narrative, not necessarily having intense combat moments. Like Lancer is heavily combat focused. I wonder if maybe there's some interesting in-betweener that you can do with them, or like somehow kind of mix the 2 concepts, like have somehow the mechs take part in this, or vice versa. If for some that prefer, because that's the thing, for some that prefer a bit more that kind of kick out to more mecha styled, combat gamier feel that the mecha system has, then Lancer is more towards you. If you want something that's a bit more heavily more flexible, but it doesn't really give you all the tricked outs. I'm sure to be fair, there's a ton of like supplement material, so I'm expecting that with the supplement material you also have additional gear and additional things to add to your mech. But even there, the mech is quite limited in what you have. It does have the wackiness and a weird combinations or weird things that you can do with it in Lancer. Maybe there are elements there that can be explored, or maybe you can retrofit or reinterpret some concepts and add it to beamsaber yourself. Honestly, there are some themes and concepts that I really like within Lancer. That if I were to say run, I would run beamsaber. I would still want to have those themes present here. Like, I like the concept of the NHP and how that works. Some elements of the world building in Lancer are interesting, so I feel like they could fit within beamsaber as well, and probably also vice versa. So that I would probably as well, especially the interplay of mechs and factions, all of that, and how the equipment works, how you advance. So definitely there would be some elements there that I would probably design myself, or try to see if any of the supplements have something that I'm looking for. Or maybe there is something within this book, because I know there is a chapter that mentions about like app creation, which I have to see what exactly that means. There could be something specific to that, but we'll look into it once we get there, because that one is in the game mastery section. But yeah, for a more streamed down and just an added extra, basically an extension of yourself, or an exosuit basically of what you can already do, you have it here. I mean, technically, because you are choosing between what you're doing either as a pilot or as a mech, but seeing that in here the aspect of losing the mech doesn't necessarily put you fully out of commission, because you still have quite enough of attributes and abilities and skills that you can utilize even outside the mech. That means that it's not only just about the mech or you just being inside the mech, so you can offer and make contribution to your group and party even without having access to your grand machine of war. And there could be missions where you are acting more as the pilot and necessarily than as the human factor than necessarily the mechanized one. But I love the flexibility of it. I like how, you can create the mech of your dreams, the mech that you wanted, the way that you want it. To be fair, even within the Lancer community, there's a ton of freedom of interpretation on how certain, even like standard models of certain mechs, of certain Lancers look. Because yeah, you have the GM Everest, which that one is box standard. Make what kind of mecha you want. They are generalized, and they even said that it's at a baseline the frame is the same, but the way it's constructed or manufactured, its design look, it could differ from one player to another. We can explore and experiment with that. But here it leads to the wider extreme of it. It represents and it defines aspects of how this vehicle behaves within the scenes. But you can make it however the hell you want it. Be it quadrupedal, more vehicle, more in the looks of an actual vehicle, something more humanoid, something quadrupedal or monstrous in design. It could just also be something of that nature if you want to make something a bit more, I don't know, vaguely mechanically eldritch, let's call it. You have the options, you have the utilities, you have the ways to do so, and hey, that's pretty cool. I'm liking where this system goes towards. I like the more story forward aspect of it as well, and especially for those who prefer that style of play and prefer those concepts and those ways of moving forward. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think I have much else to look at it. I mean, we can like just have quick looks and some other small pieces here and there, but I don't see necessarily the point of looking in depth at it, and I'm not gonna like look in depth. I'm just gonna have it around. Why not? But yeah, force field, mobility suit, a full flight system dash thruster. Okay, yeah. Passenger space, armor, quite obvious. Cargo space, pretty obvious. Coding programs, a pickup. Okay, limited. Okay. Intrusion, countermeasure, indicating computer system to prevent hacking. Fair enough. A retrieval program. Some vehicles have programs for searching connected databases. Enough. Supply reserves. Construction tools. A grapple, hull projector, modding. Spotlight. Flare mortar. Okay. And then weapons. anti-infantry, direct energy weapon, flamethrower, melee or two, a vehicle, mounted melee weapon such as a tire spike or a plow or handheld blade. So basically anything that you can use as melee that you've seen deemed fit as a weapon. Machine gun, heavy cannons, rapid missile and rockets. Again, very distilled and in style and concept. So that from that point onwards, you can just imagine how it looks, its own, and behaves. But if you want like the more inner particulars of cannons of different purposes and varieties, then this system's not really gonna offer you. I like the quirk system, the idea that, you know, kind of like in real life, machinery have their character, have a bit of their own personality, especially like used vehicles have their personality, or even like brand new vehicles, depending on how they were manufactured. Different models may behave differently. No two models are the same in how they behave. They could have close similarities, but each car has their quirks. It has their weird characteristics and weird clumsiness, which could be good and bad. And as usual, the driver adapts to them. They get used to it. They understand it. They know these quirks and how to use them to their advantage, or how to, you know, work around them without causing trouble to the piece of equipment or piece of machinery, and on. So it emphasizes a very real aspect of how you handle vehicles and how you handle machineries. It's really cool. It's neat. Of course, the fatality of being in a mech and just having it crunched, and you also being part of that, so you are crunch squared, which is sucky. And yeah, just advancements as all the other advancements, which I'm sure like across the board they've all funked. Same. Replacing the vehicles, the vehicle actions as well. I'm gonna look through all of it again. Added bombard, yeah. The long range. You know, how you aim it. What are you attacking from a long range? How appropriate is the shot for the weapon you're taking? So you also leave it to the player to decide aspects and characteristics of the equipment. Destroy, you know, what are you trying to destroy? What kind of weapon are you using to do so? How concerned are you about collateral? Because, you know, that's part of it. Maneuver. Where are you trying to move? What course do you plot for your destination? What mobility systems are you using? So that you can determine factors. Manipulate. What are you trying to move? What part of your mech are you using it to manipulate it? How do you control that? And where do you want to put it? And scan, you know, what type of sensors are you using? Radar, sonar, heat, something stranger. How are the results displayed on your cockpit? And what are you trying to learn? So basically tell me what you want to know, and I'll tell you if I can give you that information. Not necessarily expect me to know what you are expecting within your head. You know, communication back and forth. Those sorts of good things. And of course the general perception of within culture of vehicles. But yeah, that's basically it for the vehicle chapter. I find to occasionally have shorter chapters like we did today. To be fair, as I said, I did kind of push myself today got myself stuck in some hyperfixation thing, so I'm fine to take this a bit slower, to take this day slower for the stream and just end it a bit earlier. It's completely fine, so I don't mind it. I've had fun with it. So, and plus I kind of like to keep the structure, because I know for a fact if I jump into anything else, I'm not gonna give attention to it. And as I said, I think I feel a bit of the tiredness kind of catching up to me today, so probably best overall. Like, I'm not yet tired, but I feel like it's there. So yeah, but hey, a lot of fun, cool stuff to check, to kind of keep a bit for the chats. Guess what? Do we have at least 3 more chapters? At least 3 more planned streams. Although there is a possibility the Game Master section, I'm gonna split it into like 2 parts, because I think the Game Master section is pretty lengthy. Yeah, the Game Master section is a bit lengthy, so maybe we can have was thinking maybe we can have elements that would be akin to starting a game, like, you know, because we have session 0, create a campaign, creating factions, squads. Like, we could have this, maybe even preparing a mission. 30 pages, which is doable within a stream. Then preparing for a mission onwards to be the next part. I think. Or maybe even before that. Like, final touches could be like a part of it, and then I'm creating squad onward. Second part, I'll probably have to look a bit in advance for it. But yeah, let's say 2 parts. Squad playbook is another 3, and the downtime activities with what we skipped before the vehicles chapter as another. So 4 more streams, actually, possibly 4 more. Okay, there's gonna be significant coverage of this, which is fine. I'm not necessarily in a heavy rush, but as I said in the past, one of the reasons why I'm going a lot more general, and just kind of going with the overview, what I like to call the broader strokes, mostly because one of the things that I felt with the first ttrpg that I've covered, which was Daggerheart, back almost 2 years ago when the playtest was released, I was feeling like I was not only dragging the content out, but I was dragging myself out through covering this. I feel like even I, after a bit, kind of felt tired, which is probably also one of the reasons why I felt like I needed to take a bit of a break from covering this, because I think I've just really exhausted myself by covering every nook and cranny of Daggerheart, instead of just looking at maybe the broader strokes, and from there either explore other things of Daggerheart that are not the inner details, or just look for something else. Because I remember, like, the infamous time where I just constantly delayed the bunkers and badasses TTRPG stream until I got to a point where I decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna put it on schedule whenever I know that I'm actually gonna cover it on schedule, and that's it. I'm no longer gonna make the promise that, oh yeah, I'm just gonna work on it in advance. No, on the week where I know that, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and it was the effort kind of not really doing it the way I kind of wanted to do it, or the way I was thinking of maybe I should do it. Let me just do it the way I've already done it, just to ease my way back into it, because the gap between Daggerheart and the Bunkers and Badasses was getting larger and larger, of not covering anything TTRPG related, and I wanted to at least have something. I was like, okay, fine, I'm still gonna do it in my initial style of just running off the cuff, reading the book, giving my opinions, giving my perspectives, and going with it. But at the very least, I'm covering some tabletop RPGs. It's not the most transformative of ways, but it's something. And it's better than nothing. And then, you know, we'll see where we go from there. You know, we already ran this way through quite a few series of RPG. To be fair, another reason why I like this method is because I can also just jump in on the stream and do this. I don't necessarily have to do much preparation in advance. At best, I just have to look to see, okay, how much can I cover for today, or in case I'm unclear on the structure of the book, how much I'm gonna cover. Here it's a bit more clear cut in ways that I want to cover and want to approach it in subjects. Because then we talked about vehicles, we talked about like core components of both character creation, or like wider characterization, let's call it, because it's not just character. Squads and vehicles are more about characterizations, not necessarily the character. Anyways, wider characterization elements, like core elements as separate pieces of content, like streams, and then the other wider chapters like game master activities, so on. It's yeah, because this method allows me that even if I have nothing prepared, or I don't prepare something or I don't look into that book in advance, I can still just jump in and run it off the cuff here, just read it as is, because that's anyways what I'm kind of mostly doing, reading as is and give my opinions and what's covered. So that's it. Anyways, that's the general yapping of this. I'm not gonna keep at it. Any other reason? I was looking at the time, looking if there's anything to discuss or anything such. To be fair, I was like thinking on what exactly to cover after this. To be fair, we still have like 4 streams, so still a bit. But you know, Beamsaber this time around came in clutch, but there's still that, you know, looming factor that there's gonna be a point where I'm not gonna have something to cover, and I'm debating if I should actually nip the problem in the bud and actually go through what stuff, go through Vampire, go through Under the Reckoning. I have some of the stuff, I have some of the books, I have some of gifts on me. The graciousness that is our storyteller Ghost, I have access to a few of those. Hunter, Vampire, Werewolf. I'm sure if I ask Ghost, she probably can set me up with some mage as well in a PDF format. So I was thinking maybe Vampire, just because, you know, for the shenanigans of, you know, the Vampire VTuber is talking about Vampire the Masquerade, the ttrpg. Makes sense, right? So yeah, I'll think about it. We'll see. Once I'm getting close to ending Beamsaber, I'll debate on that. Because yeah, we're getting to a point where I have not much else to cover, and we are kind of out of topics or RPG or tabletop RPGs that I own more than anything. So we'll see. But that kind of covers it for today. Tomorrow it's gonna be some fun indie game demo stuff. I'll have to also check through my for the Steam Next Fest to have a few backups just in case the demo is gonna be faster than I expected. So that's also something to be to stay clear for. And from there, we'll see how it goes. And to be fair, that kind of covers the week. So yeah. Overall, as I don't necessarily mind for ending it a bit earlier today. I guess I could just do some. I still have some stuff to do. I'll be honest. I just because of the derailment hyperfixation that I've done before stream, I was not able to do all the stuff that I wanted to do today. So I can quickly, some of the stuff that's been left, I can like quickly jump at it and do it now. Like after I'm done, after, you know, I end the stream, I can jump at it and work on it. So that's good. And you know, I can get at it and I think. Yeah, I don't see any reason to kind of stick around anymore. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable. Okay, so yeah, today has been a shorter stream, which is completely fine. Nothing too bad about it, I would say. All's good and ends good. So then, how about we go and check in? Who is around that we can say hi to? Gotta be some cool peeps. Be somebody doing something RPG like, maybe mecha, sci-fi, or some sorts. That'll be neat as well. Look at. Fantasy. I see some people too. Wow, because I think Midnight released, right? Yeah, I think Midnight released the expansion. So coolio. Glad I can't experience it. Man, honestly, the Warsaw Saga is one of the few that I'm kind of sucky that I'm missing out on playing it as current content overall. But oh well, it is what it is. You know what? I think I know where I'm gonna go. It's not necessarily RPG adjacent of any sorts, but hey, it's peeps that I think are cool and worth checking out, so let's do that. So, channel, and boom, we are saying hi to Hypixel, to Mio, or Papa Mio, our wonderful, wonderful model rigger. So let's say hi to them. Mio is currently playing some Sims 4, as per usual. That's their ballpark and purview. Always do neat, interesting, wacky builds within, or not necessarily wacky builds, all sorts of like customization thing. Also, hi there, Bunny. How are you doing? Sorry that you jumped in at this point about it, because yeah, apparently today I think the stars have decided to be a shorter day of streaming. But I think we can just quickly give you a shout out before we end up get out of here. But I appreciate you just jumping in and saying hi. So yeah, sorry, today is just gonna be a shorter stream day. It is what it is. It is the nature of things sometimes. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed your time for as long as you've been here, and have fun with it. And yeah, as well, hope we have a happy weekend. To be fair, I'm gonna be back at this tomorrow to check out a indie demo that I got access to. Plus, if we have more time, probably also checking some Steam Next Fest demos as well. So I'm gonna make a selection tomorrow and see where we go. Yeah. Oh, also, we raided, so I'm gonna be out. Bye!